There will come a moment in your life when everything seems to go against you. The plan fails. The person you trusted disappoints you. The opportunity disappears. The money becomes tight. The future becomes uncertain. And suddenly you find yourself standing in the middle of a situation you never asked for, wondering, why is this happening to me? But listen carefully. That moment does not define you. What defines you is what you do next. Because life does not become powerful when everything goes according to plan. Life becomes powerful when you learn how to remain steady when the plan falls apart. Anyone can be positive when life is easy. Anyone can smile when everything is working. Anyone can believe in themselves when the results are coming. But your real character appears when nothing seems to be working. That is when your attitude becomes your greatest weapon. You cannot always control what happens around you. But you can control what happens inside you. You can control the meaning you give to failure. You can control whether disappointment makes you bitter or wiser. You can control whether rejection becomes a reason to quit or a reason to become better. And that is where an unbreakable positive mental attitude begins. Not with pretending, not with empty motivation, not with telling yourself that everything will magically become perfect. It begins with one decision. I will not allow circumstances to decide who I become. Think about how powerful that decision is. You lose something. You learn. You fail. You adjust. You get rejected. You improve. You face criticism. You become stronger. You experience a setback. You come back with greater wisdom. This is how mentally strong people live. They don't expect life to be easy. They expect themselves to become stronger. And there is a huge difference. Most people spend their lives asking, how can I make my life easier? A stronger person asks, how can I make myself stronger? That question changes everything. Because when you become stronger, the same problems that once destroyed your confidence begin to teach you. The same rejection that once broke your heart becomes information. The same failure that once embarrassed you becomes experience. The same difficult season that once made you question yourself becomes the chapter that proves what you are capable of. Your goal is not to avoid every storm. Your goal is to become the kind of person who can walk through the storm without losing yourself. And that begins with controlling your mind. You cannot build a powerful life with a powerless mind. Every morning, you are training your mind. The thoughts you repeat, the things you focus on, the people you listen to, the stories you tell yourself, all of them are shaping you. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't, your brain begins looking for evidence. If you constantly tell yourself, it's too late, you stop looking for opportunities. If you constantly tell yourself, I'm not good enough, you begin behaving like someone who isn't good enough. But when you change the conversation inside your mind, you change the direction of your life. Instead of saying, why me? Ask, what can this teach me? Instead of saying, I failed, say, I discovered what doesn't work. Instead of saying, I'm behind, say, I'm still building. Instead of saying, this is impossible, ask, what is the next step? That is positive thinking with strength behind it. It isn't denial. It is direction. You acknowledge reality, but you refuse to surrender your power to it. And there will be days when you don't feel positive. There will be mornings when motivation is gone. There will be nights when doubt becomes loud. Do not wait for the perfect feeling. Move anyway. Because your attitude cannot depend entirely on your emotions. Feelings change. Discipline remains. You may feel afraid and still act courageously. You may feel tired and still take one step. You may feel uncertain and still continue. You may feel discouraged and still refuse to quit. That is mental strength. It is not the absence of negative thoughts. It is refusing to let negative thoughts become your identity. You are going to have bad days. Have them. You are going to feel disappointed. Feel it. You are going to question yourself. Question. But don't build a permanent home inside a temporary emotion. A bad day is not a bad life. A failure is not a failed identity. A setback is not the end of your story. Never confuse a chapter with the entire book. Your life is still being written. And you are holding the pen. There is another truth you must understand. You cannot build an unbreakable mind if you are constantly seeking approval. The moment you need everyone to understand you, you become controlled by everyone. Someone criticizes you, and your mood changes. Someone ignores you, and your confidence disappears. Someone disagrees with you, and suddenly you question your entire direction. You cannot live like that. You need an internal foundation. Know what you stand for. Know what you are working toward. Know what kind of person you want to become. Then let opinions pass through you without controlling you. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every rejection deserves your sadness. Not every opinion deserves a response. Sometimes the strongest response is simply continuing your journey. Let people misunderstand you. Let them underestimate you. Let them doubt you. You do not need to convince everyone. Your results will speak. Your consistency will speak. Your character will speak. And most importantly, your peace will speak. There is tremendous power in becoming emotionally independent. You stop needing applause to keep going. You stop needing permission to improve. You stop needing everyone to believe in your dream. You become your own source of encouragement. And when you reach that point, something changes. You become difficult to break. Because your strength is no longer coming from outside. It is coming from within. But understand this. An unbreakable attitude does not mean you never fall. You will fall. The difference is that you learn how to get back up. Look at every strong person you admire. Behind their confidence, there are failures you never saw. Behind their discipline, there were days they wanted to quit. Behind their success, there were moments when nobody believed in them. Strength is often built in private. It is built when nobody is watching. It is built when you wake up and keep your promise to yourself. It is built when you choose discipline over comfort. It is built when you stop making excuses. It is built when you decide that your future deserves more commitment than your present mood. That is where your positive mental attitude becomes unbreakable. You stop asking life to give you confidence. You start giving yourself evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. Every time you finish what you started, your confidence grows. Every time you do something difficult instead of avoiding it, your confidence grows. Confidence is not simply something you feel. It's something you build. And you build it through action. So if your life feels difficult right now, don't immediately assume that something has gone wrong. Maybe you are being trained. Maybe this season is developing patience you didn't have. Maybe this rejection is redirecting you. Maybe this failure is teaching you something success never could. Maybe this pressure is introducing you to a stronger version of yourself. You don't have to love the struggle, but you can respect what the struggle is teaching you. That is maturity. And remember, your mind will always look for a story. If you don't consciously choose the story, your fear will choose it for you. Fear says, you're finished. Strength says, you're learning. Fear says, nobody believes in you. Strength says, I believe enough to continue. Fear says, What if you fail again? Strength says, then I will learn again. Fear wants certainty. Strength accepts uncertainty and moves anyway. That is the mindset you need. Not a mind that believes everything will be easy. A mind that believes you can handle what comes, because you don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. You only need to know that you will continue taking the next step. One step, then another, then another. That is how mountains are climbed, not in one heroic movement, but through thousands of ordinary steps. Your future is being built through ordinary decisions you make today. What you read, what you watch, what you think about, who you surround yourself with, how you respond when things don't go your way, whether you get back up, whether you keep your word, whether you continue when nobody is clapping. These small choices are quietly creating your identity. So protect your mind. Be careful what you repeatedly consume. Be careful who you constantly listen to. Be careful which thoughts you allow to become beliefs. Your mind is not a trash can. Don't fill it with negativity all day and expect peace at night. Feed it with ideas that make you stronger. Feed it with discipline. Feed it with gratitude. Feed it with purpose. Feed it with courage. And when negativity appears, don't panic. Observe it. Question it. Then choose a better thought. You are not required to believe every thought that enters your mind. Remember that. A thought is not a command. A feeling is not a fact. A setback is not an identity. And a difficult season is not a permanent destination. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to become someone your past self would barely recognize. Every day gives you another opportunity to rebuild your attitude. So tomorrow morning, don't ask, what can I get from today? Ask, what can I become today? Can you become more patient, more disciplined, more focused, more grateful, more courageous, more peaceful, more resilient? Because the ultimate victory is not controlling the world around you. The ultimate victory is becoming someone who cannot easily be controlled by the world around you. Storms will come. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Doors will close. Things will happen that you never expected. But you can still stand. You can still breathe. You can still think. You can still choose. And as long as you can choose your response, you still possess power. So don't waste your life wishing reality were different. Work with reality. Accept what happened. Learn from it. Release what you cannot change. And then move forward. Quietly, passionately, relentlessly. One day, you will look back at the things that once broke you and realize something incredible. They didn't break you. They built you. They taught you how to stand without applause. They taught you how to continue without guarantees. They taught you how to believe without evidence. They taught you how to become your own source of strength. And that is what an unbreakable positive mental attitude really means. It means you don't need a perfect life to have a powerful mind. You don't need constant success to remain confident. You don't need everyone's approval to keep moving. You don't need certainty to take action. You simply need the courage to say, I may not control everything that happens to me, but I will control who I become because of it. Say it again. I will control who I become because of it. Let that become your philosophy. When life gives you pressure, become stronger. When life gives you rejection, become wiser. When life gives you failure, become better. When life gives you uncertainty, become calmer. When life gives you pain, become deeper. And when life gives you another opportunity, do not hesitate. Step forward. Because your life is not determined by the worst thing that happened to you. It is determined by what you choose to do after it. So, stand up. Clear your mind. Straighten your shoulders. Take a breath and move forward. You have more strength than your current circumstances are allowing you to see. You have more potential than your current results are showing. And you have more control than your fear wants you to believe. Your story is not finished. Your best chapter may still be ahead. Keep going. Keep building. Keep believing. Not because life promised you an easy road, but because you decided that no road would be strong enough to stop you. Your circumstances may shake you, but your attitude decides whether you stay standing. Before you try to change your life, you have to learn how to manage the place where every decision begins, your mind. Because your life will always move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. You can have talent, opportunities, intelligence, and ambition. But if your mind constantly tells you that you are not capable, you will sabotage opportunities before they have a chance to grow. And this is why the first battle is not outside of you. It is inside. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to control things they were never meant to control. They want other people to understand them. They want circumstances to cooperate. They want the past to change. They want the future to guarantee them success. But none of that is completely within your hands. What is within your hands is your response. Someone can disrespect you, but they cannot force you to lose your dignity. Someone can reject you, but they cannot decide whether you continue. A difficult situation can create pressure, but it cannot determine the person you become under that pressure. That choice remains yours. And once you understand this, you stop wasting energy fighting reality and start using your energy to build yourself. You begin asking a different question. Not, why is this happening to me? But, how should I respond to this? That small change in thinking can completely change your life. Because when you ask, why me, you position yourself as a victim of circumstances. But when you ask, what can I do now? You take your power back. You may not be able to choose the situation, but you can choose your next move. And sometimes your next move is simply to remain calm. Sometimes it is to walk away. Sometimes it is to work harder. Sometimes it is to accept that something is over. Sometimes it is to begin again. Mental strength does not always look dramatic. Sometimes strength is silence. Sometimes strength is patience. Sometimes strength is refusing to react when everything inside you wants to explode. That is real control. Because anyone can react. It takes awareness to pause. It takes discipline to breathe before speaking. It takes maturity to realize that not every emotion deserves an immediate action. Your emotions are real, but they do not have to become your instructions. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel fear without obeying fear. You can feel disappointment without allowing disappointment to define your future. This is where your inner freedom begins. You create space between what happens and what you do about it. And inside that space is your power. Think about how many times you have allowed one bad moment to ruin an entire day. Someone says something you don't like, and suddenly you carry those words for hours. A mistake happens, and you spend the rest of the day attacking yourself. A plan fails, and you immediately decide that everything is going wrong. But one event does not deserve control over your entire mind. You have to learn to zoom out. One conversation is not your whole life. One failure is not your whole identity. One rejection is not a prediction of your future. One difficult season is not the definition of your existence. You must learn to see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is this. You are still here. You are still capable of learning. You are still capable of changing. You are still capable of taking another step. That is enough. You don't need to solve your entire life today. You only need to control what is directly in front of you. Control your attention. Control your effort. Control your words. Control your habits. Control your response. Then the rest unfold. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. There is tremendous peace in realizing that you don't have to control everything. You don't have to know exactly what tomorrow will bring. You don't have to have every answer. You don't have to make everyone happy. You simply have to remain responsible for the person you are becoming. And that requires you to become careful about what you repeatedly tell yourself. Because your mind listens. If every morning you tell yourself, "I'm behind," your mind begins to live from scarcity. If you tell yourself, "I'm not good enough," you begin looking for evidence that confirms it. If you tell yourself, "Nothing ever works for me," you stop noticing the opportunities that do appear. But change the language. "I am learning. I am improving. I can handle one step at a time. I don't know the answer yet, but I can find it. I have been through difficult things before, and I am still standing." These aren't empty affirmations. They are reminders of responsibility. You are teaching your mind where to look, and what you focus on grows. If you constantly focus on problems, problems become your entire world. If you begin looking for possibilities, solutions, lessons, and opportunities, your mind becomes trained to see them. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to let reality become an excuse for surrender. There's a difference between accepting that something is difficult and deciding that something is impossible. There is a difference between acknowledging pain and becoming attached to it. There is a difference between being realistic and being defeated. You can look directly at a difficult situation and still say, "This is hard, but I will handle it." That sentence carries strength. Because you are not lying to yourself, you are simply refusing to abandon yourself. And perhaps that is one of the most important promises you can make. Never abandon yourself during difficult seasons. When you fail, don't become your own enemy. When you make a mistake, correct it. When you fall behind, begin again. When you lose confidence, rebuild it through action. Don't spend your entire life waiting to feel strong. Act with strength, and confidence will follow. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you become more trustworthy to yourself. Every time you do something difficult instead of avoiding it, you become more courageous. Every time you choose patience instead of reaction, you become more peaceful. And slowly, something changes. You stop needing the world to be calm before you can be calm. You stop needing everything to go your way before you can feel okay. You stop depending on circumstances for your identity. You become grounded. And once your mind becomes grounded, life can shake you without controlling you. That is the beginning of an unbreakable attitude. You cannot control the world, but you can control the mind you bring into it, and that is where your real power begins. And once you begin to understand that your mind is your responsibility, you start seeing difficult experiences differently. You stop asking how to escape every hardship, and you begin asking what hardship can build inside you. Because adversity is not always your enemy. Sometimes adversity is the teacher you never wanted, but the teacher you desperately needed. Think about the strongest parts of your character. Your patience, your discipline, your courage, your ability to stay calm, your ability to keep going when things become difficult. None of these qualities were created during comfortable moments. They were created when something tested you. You learned patience because you had to wait. You learned courage because you were afraid. You learned discipline because motivation disappeared. You learned resilience because something knocked you down. This is why you should stop looking at every difficult season as evidence that your life is going wrong. Sometimes difficulty is simply asking you to grow. You don't have to enjoy the pain. You don't have to pretend that disappointment doesn't hurt. You don't have to smile while everything is falling apart. You simply have to refuse to let the experience become meaningless. If something hurts, learn from it. If something fails, study it. If someone leaves, understand what the experience revealed. If a door closes, look for another direction. This is how you turn adversity into strength. The event itself is only part of the story. The meaning you give the event becomes the other part. Two people can experience the same failure and walk away completely different. One says, "This proves I'm not good enough." The other says, "This showed me what I need to improve." Same failure. Different interpretation. Different future. That is why your attitude matters so much. You may not choose every experience, but you can choose what you build from it. And sometimes the most painful experiences reveal the strongest version of you. You discover that you can survive things you once believed would destroy you. You discover that you can start over. You discover that you can live without certain people. You discover that rejection did not end your life. You discover that failure did not erase your potential. You discover that you are capable of much more than you thought. But you only discover these things when you keep moving. If you run from every difficulty, you never discover your strength. If you always choose comfort, you never learn what you are capable of. A muscle becomes stronger because it is challenged. The same principle applies to your character. You become mentally stronger by meeting difficulty instead of constantly avoiding it. This doesn't mean you should search for suffering. It means when suffering arrives, don't waste it. Use it. Let it sharpen you. Let it teach you. Let it make you more thoughtful, more disciplined, more patient, and more aware. There is a quiet strength in saying, "This is difficult, but I will learn from it." Not, "Why is my life so unfair?" Not, "Why does this always happen to me?" But, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" That question changes your relationship with adversity. Suddenly, the obstacle becomes a lesson. The delay becomes an opportunity to develop patience. The rejection becomes an invitation to improve. The failure becomes feedback. The difficult person becomes a test of your emotional control. The uncertain future becomes a chance to develop faith in your ability to adapt. And you begin realizing something important. You don't need life to become easier. You need to become more capable. Because if you only become happy when life is easy, your happiness will always be fragile. But if you learn how to remain steady during difficult moments, you develop something much more valuable than temporary comfort. You develop inner stability. That stability allows you to keep your direction when circumstances change. And circumstances will change. People will change. Markets will change. Opportunities will change. Your plans will change. Your body will change. Your responsibilities will change. Life is movement. Nothing stays exactly the same. So don't build your peace on the assumption that everything will remain predictable. Build your peace on the knowledge that you can adapt. You can learn. You can rebuild. You can begin again. This is why mentally strong people don't panic every time something goes wrong. They pause. They observe. They ask questions. Then they act. They understand that panic rarely improves a situation. Clarity does. So when adversity comes, give yourself permission to breathe. Don't make permanent decisions because of temporary emotions. Don't destroy your future because today feels painful. Don't quit a meaningful journey simply because one chapter became difficult. Stay, learn, Adjust. Continue. There will be moments when you feel like you are moving backward. But sometimes what feels like a step backward is preparation for a larger step forward. Growth is rarely a straight line. There are setbacks. There are mistakes. There are pauses. There are seasons when you seem to make no progress at all. But something may still be developing underneath the surface. Roots grow in darkness before the tree becomes visible. Your character can develop in seasons when nobody sees your progress. So don't measure your growth only by visible results. Measure it by who you are becoming. Are you calmer than you were last year? Are you more disciplined? Do you recover faster? Do you react less? Do you think more clearly? Do you handle disappointment better? These are victories. Small victories perhaps, but powerful ones. Because eventually those small improvements become a completely different identity. You become someone who doesn't collapse when things go wrong. Someone who doesn't need everything to be perfect before taking action. Someone who can experience disappointment without losing direction. Someone who can walk through uncertainty without surrendering hope. That is real resilience. And resilience is not built by saying, "Nothing bad will happen to me." It is built by saying, "Whatever happens, I will face it." That mindset changes everything. Because now you are no longer waiting for life to protect you. You are preparing yourself to meet life. You understand that storms are part of the journey. And instead of spending your entire life praying for a stormless existence, you become strong enough to carry an umbrella. You become prepared. You become adaptable. You become grounded. And one day you will look back at the hardest moments of your life with a strange kind of gratitude. Not because you wanted them, not because they were easy, but because they introduced you to a version of yourself that comfort never could. The struggle didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal what you were capable of becoming. And once you understand that adversity can make you stronger, you begin to see the final piece of the puzzle. You have to choose your attitude every single day. Because a positive mental attitude is not something you find once and keep forever. You build it. You practice it. You protect it. Every morning, life gives you another choice. You can wake up and immediately start worrying about everything that could go wrong. Or you can wake up and decide, whatever today brings, I will meet it with clarity. That doesn't mean today will be perfect. It means you won't surrender your peace before the day has even begun. You have to understand something simple but powerful. Your attitude is a daily decision. Some days, choosing positivity will feel easy. Other days, it will feel like work. There will be mornings when you don't feel motivated. There will be moments when you're disappointed. There will be situations where negativity feels more natural than hope. Those are the days when your choice matters most. Anyone can have a good attitude when everything is going well. The real test is whether you can remain grounded when nothing is going according to plan. You don't need to convince yourself that everything is good. You simply need to remind yourself that you can still do something good with what you have. Maybe you don't have the opportunity you wanted. What can you do with the opportunity you have? Maybe someone didn't appreciate you. Can you still appreciate yourself? Maybe your progress is slower than expected. Can you continue anyway? Maybe the future is uncertain. Can you focus on the next step instead of demanding the entire map? This is what a strong attitude looks like. It is not blind optimism. It is disciplined hope. You acknowledge reality without allowing reality to destroy your spirit. And this requires you to become intentional about what you give your attention to. Because attention is energy. Whatever you constantly focus on begins to occupy your mind. If you spend your entire day watching other people's lives, comparing your progress, reading negative comments, and thinking about everything you don't have, how can you expect your mind to remain peaceful? You have to protect your attention Not everything deserves access to your mind. Not every argument deserves your response. Not every opinion deserves your consideration. Not every problem deserves your emotional energy. Sometimes the most positive thing you can do is simply walk away from what continuously drains you. Choose what deserves your attention. Choose what deserves your effort. Choose what deserves your emotions. Because your energy is limited. Spend it on becoming better, not on proving yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. And don't forget gratitude. Gratitude is one of the simplest ways to change your mental state. When you constantly focus on what is missing, life feels empty. But when you notice what is already present, your perspective changes. You may not have everything you want, but perhaps you have another morning, another opportunity, another lesson, another chance to improve, another chance to apologize, another chance to begin again. Never underestimate the power of appreciating what you already have while continuing to work for what you want. Gratitude doesn't mean settling. It means building from a place of appreciation instead of desperation. And when you practice gratitude, you become less controlled by comparison. You stop looking at someone else's chapter and judging your entire story. You realize that everyone has a different timeline. Someone may be ahead of you in one area and behind you in another. Your responsibility is not to outrun everyone. Your responsibility is to become better than the person you were yesterday. That is a race you can actually win. And there will be days when you lose that race. You may procrastinate. You may react emotionally. You may make the wrong choice. You may fall back into an old habit. When that happens, don't turn one mistake into an identity. Correct yourself. Learn. Continue. A strong positive attitude does not say, "I never make mistakes." It says, "I don't stay down because of them." You must become comfortable beginning and again and again, because life will require it. You may have to rebuild your confidence, rebuild your finances, rebuild your relationships, rebuild your discipline, rebuild your direction, and there is no shame in rebuilding. Sometimes rebuilding is the strongest thing you can do. So when tomorrow comes, don't wait for motivation. Create movement. Get up. Make your bed. Take care of your body. Do the work. Read something that strengthens your mind. Spend less time complaining. Spend more time creating. Speak to yourself with discipline, but don't speak to yourself with cruelty. You don't need to hate yourself into becoming better. You need to respect yourself enough to keep improving. That is a very different kind of motivation. It comes from self-respect rather than self-rejection. And slowly, your daily choices begin to shape your identity. You become someone who keeps promises, someone who finishes, someone who adapts, someone who doesn't collapse at the first sign of difficulty, someone who can remain peaceful while the world around them is chaotic. That person is not created in one dramatic moment. That person is created through thousands of small decisions. One thought, one action, one disciplined choice, one calm response, one more day of refusing to quit. And eventually, you look back and realize that your attitude became your advantage. The world didn't become easier. You became stronger. The problems didn't disappear. You became better at handling them. The uncertainty didn't vanish. You became more comfortable moving through it. That is the goal. Not to create a life where nothing goes wrong, but to create a mind that doesn't fall apart every time something does. So when you wake up tomorrow, remember that you are not powerless. You have a choice. You can choose what you focus on. You can choose how you respond. You can choose what you learn. You can choose whether you continue. And no matter what happened yesterday, today gives you another opportunity to choose differently. Choose patience. Choose discipline. Choose gratitude. Choose courage. Choose progress. Choose peace. Because your attitude may not change the world around you overnight, but it can completely change the person walking through that world. Choose your attitude every day, and you will become stronger than the circumstances trying to define you. So before you leave, remember this. You do not need a perfect life to build a powerful mind. You do not need every answer today. You do not need everyone to believe in you. You do not need the road ahead to be easy. You only need the courage to keep walking. There will be days when you feel strong, and there will be days when you feel completely exhausted. There will be moments when you question yourself. There will be moments when you wonder whether all your effort is worth it. When those moments come, don't forget how far you've already traveled. Look at everything you've survived. Look at every disappointment you thought you couldn't overcome. Look at every door that closed, and every time you had to begin again. You're still here, and that means your story is still being written. So control your mind. Learn from your struggles. Protect your attitude. Stop giving your power to things you cannot control. Stop allowing temporary problems to create permanent doubt. You are not your worst day. You are not your biggest mistake. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the opinion someone had about you. You are the person you choose to become after all of it. So walk forward with patience. Work with discipline. Think with clarity. And when life becomes difficult, don't immediately ask, how do I escape this? Ask yourself, what is this moment trying to build inside me? Because sometimes the pressure is not there to destroy you. Sometimes it is there to reveal your strength. And one day, you will understand that the difficult days were not wasted. They were shaping you. They were teaching you. They were preparing you. So keep going. Even if the progress is slow, even if nobody notices, even if you have to start over, keep going. Because your future is still waiting for the person you are becoming. And when you finally become that person, you'll realize something. The greatest victory was never controlling life. It was learning to control yourself. Stay calm. Stay strong. Keep moving forward. Your mind is your power. For an out here.